Blood pooled into the cracked concrete as Daniel dragged the body of a raider behind a collapsed wall, breathing heavy through gritted teeth. The firefight had ended only minutes ago, leaving the air thick with the stink of burned plastics and ionized dust from alien rifles. He could hear distant shouts from his people, frantic and angry, echoing through the jagged streets that were once part of Redwater's central hub. The settlement had been quiet for months, gangs uneasy but balanced, until the drop pod slammed down this morning. Whoever these new arrivals were, they were not here to trade or talk, and their precision was too good for scavengers. A woman staggered into view, half her face smeared with soot. Lena clutched her side, holding pressure on a deep gash while her med bag hung loosely from her other arm. "They're not local," she said, voice trembling from pain more than fear. "Too coordinated. Not gangs, Dan." Daniel knelt beside her, checking the wound quickly, then pulling her toward the cover of an overturned transport. "Yeah, I noticed," he muttered, eyes scanning the skyline. The alien shapes were visible even through the smoke, sleek silhouettes against the dull gray sun, ships too clean and smooth to have been built by human hands. He had fought off invaders before, but never ones like these. This was no raid for resources. This felt like a purge. In the plaza, 3 more bodies lay in strange, twisted shapes, their weapons still clutched tight. Daniel's people had fought. Like hell, catching the intruders off guard with mines and jury-rigged railguns, but even then, the aliens moved like machines, every step precise, every shot calculated. He had seen soldiers like that once before, years ago, when he was on the other side of a war he would rather forget. His gut twisted as the memory of burning cities flashed uninvited into his mind. He had promised himself he would never be a soldier again, but Redwater had a way of making promises worthless. A distant rumble shook the ground, forcing Daniel and Lena to crouch lower. Another drop pod, this one further south, slamming into the barren plains. The aliens weren't retreating, they were spreading. He tapped his comm unit. "Kieran, status static?" Then a sharp voice. "Holding the west route, but they've got drones now. Fast little bastards. I took one apart and it's pure alien tech, nothing we've ever seen. Dan, what the hell are we fighting?" Daniel looked at Lena, then at the alien shapes moving through the smoke, quick and deliberate. "Something we weren't supposed to see?" Lena groaned and pressed harder on her side. "We need medkits and cover. We can't stay here. If they sweep through again, we're done." Daniel helped her to her feet and guided her down an alley, past walls scorched black by plasma fire. The smell of ozone clung to everything. He kept one hand on his rifle and the other steadying her. In the distance, the sound of alien boots on stone echoed, methodical, unhurried, like they already believed the fight was over. They reached a reinforced doorway leading into one of Redwater's older tunnel systems, carved back when mining operations still existed. Daniel kicked it open and shoved Lena inside. "Stay low, keep pressure, I'll find out what we're dealing with." Lena caught his sleeve before he could move. "You can't just rush out there alone. They're not gangs, Dan. You know what I'm saying. These things came here on purpose." Daniel met her eyes, her expression equal parts pain and fear. He had seen plenty of terrified faces, but this one cut deep because she was usually the calmest person in any room. "I'll handle it," he said quietly, prying her fingers loose. "Lock this door behind me." Outside, the sky shimmered as one of the alien ships shifted position, blocking the pale sun. For a moment, Daniel just stood there, feeling the weight of it pressing down. His people had barely survived one morning, and already these things were digging in. This wasn't a raid or even a conquest. This was extermination. He tapped his comm again, his voice low but firm. "Kieran, prep the railguns and get the others underground. We're not waiting for them to make the next move. Tonight, we hit back." The comm crackled with silence before Kieran replied. "Copy that. Guess Redwater's going to war again." Daniel took one last look at the alien patrol sweeping across the plaza, their strange armor glowing faintly under the smoke. He should have felt fear. Instead, all he felt was the sharp, cold focus of survival. The same thing that had kept him alive through every wrong choice he had ever made. Whatever these things were, they would bleed like everything else that came to take this place. And if they didn't, Redwater would make them learn. The firelight painted jagged shapes on the tunnel walls as Daniel stepped into the main cavern. 100 faces stared back at him, some angry, some tired, most simply scared. These were Redwater's people, hardened by decades of violence and betrayal, but even they had never faced something like this. Gangs who had shot each other a week ago now stood side by side, weapons slung over shoulders, eyes waiting for him, to say something that made sense of the nightmare. Above Kieran leaned against an overturned crate near the front, an old shotgun strapped across his chest, and a smirk on his face that didn't quite reach his eyes. "So, boss, what's the plan? Because I'm guessing talking to them about sharing land isn't on the table." Daniel ignored the jab and stepped onto the center platform, the old mining foreman's perch now serving as their command post. "They came in organized, too organized, for a raid. This is a military force. Whatever they want, it isn't trade, and it sure as hell isn't diplomacy." A man from one of the outlying settlements spoke up, voice sharp. "Then why not leave? Get the hell off Redwater before they burn it all down." The cavern erupted in overlapping arguments. Some demanded they fight, others screamed about running, a few suggested surrender. Daniel waited, arms crossed, until the noise died enough for his voice to carry. "You all know why we can't run. There's nowhere to run to. The minute you leave Redwater's ground, you're dead anyway. The only way we live through this is together, fighting on our terms. Not theirs," Lena, pale from blood loss but stubborn enough to limp to the front, added, "And you've seen what they do. They don't take prisoners, they don't talk. They kill, then they move on. Running isn't survival, it's just dying later." Kieran stood and slung his shotgun over his shoulder. "That settles it then. I say we stop wasting time and get creative. Those alien drones, I cracked one open earlier. They're built with something that almost looks human-compatible. I can make a few surprises for them by tomorrow night." Daniel gave a short nod. "Do it. Everyone else, arm up and seal every tunnel entrance. If they come down here, we make them regret it." Hours later, Daniel walked alone through the old eastern tunnel, past broken mining gear and rusted rail carts. He needed to think, and the quiet of the old shafts was the closest thing to peace. Left. The image of those alien soldiers wouldn't leave his head, the way they moved, efficient and perfect, like machines wearing flesh. He had fought disciplined soldiers before, but this was different. They didn't hesitate, didn't even react like humans under fire. They advanced like death itself. The calm in his ear buzzed. "Dan, you're going to want to see this," Kieran said, voice unusually tense. When Daniel reached the old control center, Kieran was hunched over a screen, eyes wide. On the feed, alien craft hovered over one of the larger settlements near the northern ridge, lights sweeping like searching eyes. Then, without warning, a column of bright plasma fire erupted from one of the ships, wiping out everything in its path. Buildings, vehicles, people, it all became a glowing scar on the surface. Daniel's jaw clenched. "How many were up there?" Kieran hesitated. "Maybe 50. Families mostly. Dan. They're not securing territory, they're clearing it." Lena's voice cut through on the comm, strained but clear. "They're trying to push us underground, force us into one place. It's a trap." Daniel exhaled slowly, the weight of the choice pressing down hard. "Then we don't give them that chance. We hit them tonight before they can regroup." The night air on Redwater was thin and cold, carrying the metallic taste of dust. Daniel crouched behind the remains of an old watchtower with 8 others, watching the alien patrol approach the western ridge. Each soldier moved like clockwork, weapons at the ready, glowing lines pulsing faintly across their armor. Kieran whispered, "They don't even breathe heavy. Kinda creepy, right?" "Focus," Daniel said, pulling the trigger on his old but reliable rifle. The first shot punched through the chest plate of the lead soldier, dropping it instantly. The others turned fast, unnervingly fast, and the fight erupted in seconds. Railgun rounds cracked through the cold night, alien plasma bolts burned orange through the dark, and human fighters surged forward with knives, shotguns, and sheer rage. It wasn't clean. It wasn't even coordinated half the time, but it was brutal and effective. Humans fought like animals, using every dirty trick they had learned surviving Redwater. When the smoke cleared, 6 alien bodies lay scattered, their strange armor cracked open. Daniel knelt beside one, pulling off the helmet. The face beneath was pale and thin, with black eyes too large and skin marked with faint, glowing veins. It looked human enough to be unsettling, but wrong enough to feel alien. One of Daniel's fighters muttered, "What the hell are they?" Daniel stared at the body, feeling the old chill of recognition. He didn't have an answer, but in his gut, he knew one thing for certain. Whoever these things were, they hadn't come to bargain. They had come to erase. By dawn, the aliens broadcast their first direct message, voice synthetic and cold, echoing across every comm unit on Redwater. "You have one chance to surrender. Refuse, and we will cleanse your world entirely." Daniel listened, jaw tight, then pressed his own comm and replied, "Try." The tunnels smelled of rust, sweat, and fear. Daniel walked through them with his rifle slung, helmet clipped to his belt, listening to the quiet shuffle of people who were used to surviving anything, but looked broken now. Redwater's gangs, smugglers, even families that had learned to harden themselves through decades of exile, all huddled together in the old mining depths. Every face he passed reminded him of why they could never surrender. This place might be violent and ugly, but it was theirs, and the thought of losing it burned at the main junction. Heated voices echoed before Daniel even stepped inside. A group of armed men blocked the center space, their leader Briggs waving a rifle like punctuation for every angry word. "I'm telling you, this is suicide. Those things up there aren't soldiers, they're executioners. We need to give them what they want and walk away alive." Kieran sat on a crate nearby, chewing on a piece of wire while he worked on a salvage drone. "Yeah, sure, Briggs. Just hand over the planet to the glow-stick stormtroopers. I'm sure they'll build us a nice retirement home." Briggs swung his rifle toward Kieran. "Shut your mouth, smuggler. You got no idea what we're up against." Daniel stepped into view before Kieran could say something that would get him shot. "Drop it, Briggs." Briggs hesitated, jaw tight, but lowered his rifle halfway. "You think this is leadership, Price? You think standing here while those things burn the surface is smart? I've got kids in this hole now. I'm not watching them starve because you want to play war hero." Daniel stopped a foot away, voice low but cold. "Nobody's playing anything. You think they're going to let you leave if we hand over weapons and territory? Did you see what they did to Ridgepoint? They didn't take prisoners. They torched everything, then kept moving. That's not negotiation. That's extermination." Briggs's eyes flickered, uncertainty cracking his anger for just a moment. "And if you're wrong, then we die standing, not kneeling," Daniel said. "You want to run? Fine. But you're not taking my people with you." Kieran put down the drone piece and sighed. "Well, that was inspiring. Little bleak, but inspiring." Lena arrived minutes later, exhausted and pale, but carrying a tablet she had scavenged from the ruins of the old med center. "I've been analyzing the samples we pulled off those bodies," she said, dropping it onto a table. The screen lit up with alien schematics and DNA markers highlighted in red. "Their tech isn't just alien. Parts of it are spliced with human-compatible sequences. And this—" She zoomed in on a molecular strand glowing green. "This isn't armor, it's grown. That means someone, somewhere, engineered them for this. For us. Daniel stared at the screen, a weight settling in his stomach. You're saying they were built to kill humans? Lena nodded. Or something very close to it. And there's more. I picked up a trace in the local soil near their drop sites. Something new. Engineered biotics. I don't think they're just killing us with rifles. They're seeding something into the ground. Kieran raised an eyebrow. Please tell me that's just fertilizer. It's not, Lena said flatly. Whatever it is, it's keyed to human DNA. Give it weeks, maybe, less, and it'll spread everywhere. This isn't occupation. This is eradication from the inside out. That night, Daniel assembled a small strike team. If the aliens were planting something in the ground, he needed proof, and he needed it fast. The group moved through the surface sands under a broken moon, the cold biting through their patched armor. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the crunch of boots and the distant hum of alien patrol drones. When they reached the drop zone, Daniel froze. The sand glowed faintly blue where the pods had landed, an unnatural shimmer spreading in veins outwards. At the center, an alien machine stood half-buried, pulsing like a beating heart. Tubes extended from its core into the ground, feeding something deep beneath the surface. Kieran whispered, "Well, that's not ominous at all." Daniel signaled for quiet and crept closer. As he neared the machine, a wave of nausea hit, like the air itself was wrong. The closer he got, the more his vision wavered, almost like heat distortion. He yanked a sample tool from his belt and scooped a glowing chunk into a sealed vial, ignoring the way his hands trembled. This thing wasn't just dangerous. It felt alive. The strike team had just begun retreating when a sharp whine cut through the night. 3 alien soldiers emerged from the darkness, weapons raised, moving with that same unnerving precision. Daniel opened fire, dropping the first one with a shot to the neck, but the others advanced without hesitation, returning plasma fire that scorched the sand. The fight was fast and brutal, ending with Kieran blowing one apart with a shaped charge, and the last one pinned under Daniel's rifle barrel. He didn't kill this one. Not yet. They needed answers. He hauled the alien up, its black eyes locked on him, unblinking even with a rifle pressed to its throat. "Who sent you?" Daniel demanded. The alien didn't respond, only a faint ripple passing over its glowing veins. Then it spoke in broken human speech, voice flat and cold. "You are contamination." Back in the tunnels, Lena examined the sample with wide eyes. "This is worse than I thought. This thing isn't just a weapon. It's rewriting local microbes. Given time, it'll change the whole ecosystem to something toxic for humans." Daniel glanced at the restrained alien sitting silently in the corner, hands bound in steel cuffs. "So we're not just fighting an army, we're fighting biology itself." Lena shook her head. "If they finish seeding this, Redwater becomes unlivable in weeks. We need to hit their central command now before they complete deployment." Kieran smirked, though his eyes held no humor. "Great. Just a casual suicide run against aliens with better guns and their own pet apocalypse machine. Nothing stressful about that." Daniel checked his rifle and tightened the strap on his armor. "Get some rest. Tomorrow night we stop hiding. We take their ship." In the silence after his words, Lena met his gaze. "And if we fail?" Daniel stared back, his voice low, final. "Then there's no one left to fail." The alien flagship loomed like a dark blade above Redwater's thin clouds, its surface shifting with faint, unnatural light. Daniel crouched in the shadow of an abandoned hangar, checking the charge on his rifle, while Kieran worked on what looked like a backpack-sized bomb built from 6 different species of technology. Around them, the strike team waited, silent, except for the occasional nervous click of safeties being toggled on and off. "You know," Kieran muttered, tightening one last strap on the device. When I said I wanted to see new places, I didn't mean the inside of an alien death machine. Daniel gave a dry smile. Could have stayed underground. Yeah, well, Kieran said, glancing at him. I figured you'd need someone to blow this thing sky high if it all goes bad. Guess that's me. Daniel didn't respond to that. Just checked the map one. More time. The stolen alien shuttle they'd captured 2 nights ago sat hidden behind them, its surface still scarred from where they'd ripped out tracking devices. If it got them close enough to breach the flagship, it would be worth every risk. Redwater was dying above ground and would soon die below if they didn't stop the alien seeding project. They had one chance to cut out the heart of it inside the shuttle. The air smelled of unfamiliar oils and sharp disinfectants. Controls glowed with alien symbols Daniel couldn't read, though Kieran insisted he had learned enough to not crash in the past 48 hours. Lena, strapped into a jump seat, watched him carefully, still pale from working non-stop to synthesize a counter-agent for the bioweapon. You should be in the med bay, Daniel told her as the shuttle lifted, its engines humming with a strange, almost organic vibration. You should be smarter than picking fights with an alien fleet, she shot back. Here we are. Kieran laughed under his breath. I like her. She yells at you, but she's still coming along. The shuttle docked smoothly with the flagship's lower hangar. No alarms, no resistance. Just the unnerving emptiness of a ship that big. Daniel led them through curved corridors. The walls, alive with a faint hum. The deeper they went, the more wrong it felt. The ship wasn't just metal. It pulsed faintly, like there was something alive behind the walls. At the core, they found it. The control chamber for the seeding devices, a twisting column of light and flowing machinery. It looked more like an alien lung than a computer system, each pulse sending data to pods across the planet. Lena scanned it, jaw tightening. This is their central node. If it goes offline, every active device shuts down. Kieran dropped his bomb at the base of the structure, securing it with magnetic clamps. We've got 5 minutes once it's armed. That's generous, right? Before Daniel could answer, the doors opened. Alien soldiers poured in, their black eyes reflecting the light like glass. Plasma fire erupted, searing across the chamber. Daniel and the strike team dove behind the central console, returning fire. The air filled with the smell of scorched metal and burning ozone. Kieran pulled a cable free and jammed it into the bomb. 2 minutes to overload. Dan, we're running out of time. Daniel fired another burst, dropping one soldier, then ducked, as plasma scorched the console above his head. Everyone fall back! The team moved, but Kieran stayed put, holding the bomb in place as a heavy alien trooper advanced. Daniel turned to shout at him, but Kieran only grinned over his shoulder. Go lead your people, Dan. Someone's got to hold the door, Daniels. Stomach twisted. Kieran, don't you dare! But Kieran just flipped his shotgun to full auto and charged, slamming into the alien with enough force to knock it down. He shouted back, voice raw but steady. Redwater owes me one hell of a statue! Daniel grabbed Lena and dragged her through the exit as the countdown ticked past 30 seconds. They sprinted down the corridor, alarms blaring as the ship itself seemed to scream. Then, with a sound like the world tearing, the bomb went off. The shockwave threw them to the deck as the whole flagship shuddered, lights flickering and then dying. Back on the planet, the alien fleet broke apart in chaos. With their command hub destroyed, drones fell from the sky like broken toys, and the seeding devices stopped pulsing. Daniel stood on the surface watching as, one by one, alien ships warped out of orbit, leaving only wreckage behind. Redwater had survived, but barely. The victory celebration didn't last. Within 2 days, a new fleet appeared in orbit, not alien, but human. Sleek Earth-designed cruisers, their insignia sharp and polished, broadcasting a single message to every channel. This planet is classified as hostile. All residents will stand down and submit to Earth authority. Daniel stared at the sky, fists clenched. After everything, The fight, the blood, Kieran's sacrifice. They were about to be treated as enemies by their own species. Lena stepped beside him, whispering, "They think we're a threat now." Daniel exhaled, eyes still fixed on the descending Earth dropships. "We just proved we are." The Earth cruisers hung above Redwater like judgment made manifest, their silver hulls reflecting the pale sun. The people who had just survived an alien extermination attempt now stared up at their own species' weapons. Daniel stood in the dust-choked square of the main settlement, rifle in hand, watching dropships descend through the thin clouds. His knuckles whitened on the grip as the familiar insignia came into view. Earth Colonial Authority, the very force that had exiled every man, woman, and child on this planet generations ago. Lena stepped up beside him, her voice quiet but hard. "They're not here to help, are they?" Daniel shook his head. "No. They're here to make sure Redwater never scares anyone again." The lead Earth officer strode down the ramp in polished armor, visor reflecting the burned-out remains of Redwater's surface. Behind him marched soldiers carrying rifles, almost identical to the ones Daniel had used decades ago in another life. The officer's voice carried through an amplifier. "All armed citizens will disarm immediately and surrender for relocation. Failure to comply will be considered an act of hostility." Daniel raised his rifle but didn't point it. "We just fought off a species trying to wipe out humanity, and now you're pointing guns at us?" The officer didn't flinch. "Your unauthorized military actions violated interplanetary law. Redwater is a penal colony, not a sovereign state. You will stand down." Kieran's absence hit Daniel like a punch in the chest, and for a moment he almost considered giving in just to stop more blood. But he looked at the crowd behind him. People who had buried children under alien fire, people who had bled and starved but still fought. Redwater was theirs, not Earth's. He stepped forward. "We don't kneel. Not to aliens. Not to you." "You want control. You'll have to take it." The first shots cracked through the square, plasma and ballistic rounds trading in a violent echo. Redwater fighters surged out of alleyways and rooftops armed with captured alien rifles and crude explosives. The Earth soldiers were trained, disciplined, but they weren't prepared for people who had lived their entire lives surviving in a world built to kill them. Daniel moved through the chaos, shouting orders, pulling wounded behind. "Cover." He saw Lena kneeling over an injured boy, hands slick with blood, and his stomach clenched. This was what Earth had brought, their own people killing each other on human soil because Redwater had dared to survive. A round slammed into Daniel's shoulder, spinning him to the ground. Pain exploded through his chest, but he forced himself to crawl behind a barrier. Lena was suddenly there, dragging him back with surprising strength for someone who hadn't slept in days. "You're hit, Dan! Stay down!" He grabbed her arm, voice hoarse. "Listen to me. You take charge now. No more hiding, no more running. You keep this place free." Her eyes went wide. "Don't you say that! You're not dying on me!" But Daniel knew. He had felt this before, back in the war, that got him exiled. This was the one you didn't come back from. He smiled faintly, bloody teeth showing. This place was never supposed to be home, but we made it one. The fighting lasted hours, ending when broadcasts from outer colonies began flooding Earth. Command channels. Someone, Lena realized later it had been Daniel, hours before the battle, had sent out every recording of Earth's threat and Redwater's resistance, along with proof of the alien extermination plan. Public outcry forced Earth to pull back, their expeditionary force withdrawing under political pressure. Redwater buried its dead under an alien sky, Daniel among them. Lena stood at his grave, wind cutting through her coat, as the crowd waited for her to speak. She lifted her head, voice steady. "They wanted us gone. They wanted us quiet. But we're still here, and we're not done yet. This is our world now, and no one owns us." The crowd roared. Not in joy, but in raw, bitter resolve. They had lost. Too much to celebrate, but they would not kneel again. Days later, deep in one of the surviving tunnels, Lena listened as a comm officer rushed in, pale and shaking. "We intercepted something. Alien signal. It's not local. It's coming from beyond the fringe systems." Lena took the device, the alien voice hissing through static, words barely translated. "Redwater confirmed. Begin Phase 2. She stood there, silent, knowing in her gut this wasn't the end.